Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the next episode, episode 33 of Tell the Truth, man. A little bit of defense wins championships edition. We will be going over the full defensive roster with yours truly, D Mac, DG, and CJ. Look, man, it's still the dead of summer, man. You know how these things go. How you guys doing today?
Yeah, just at this point, ready for the season to be here, bro.
When's St. Joe coming, man? I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm ready for training camp. Ready to get to the real deal. Tired of seeing them wear shorts and t-shirts.
OTAs, you feel
Right.
me? Non-voluntary mini camps,
Yeah,
mandatory mini camps. Let me know when July come, man. I'm ready
right.
for real football. You feel me?
I think at least for the most part, though, we got everybody there. So
And like we said last time, fellas, no injuries.
yeah, no holdouts, no
That's all I
nothing.
want to see. Every time we get through a day.
Right.
Well, last time we said something, we had news, so maybe we shouldn't talk about shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
We said no
Yeah,
news, and then something
yeah.
happened.
No
Dude with
news.
dogs, and oh god.
Yeah, I'm not gonna jinx it this time.
Yeah, we just not gonna say nothing this time. We just not gonna say nothing. Last time we
Isaiah
said
Bugs.
no news and something.
Right.
Isaiah Bugs, man.
Had to be
Just
Bugs.
that is the other news that did come out. Isaiah Bugs got arrested for, I believe, neglection of dogs. I think was
Cruelty.
He left the dog in the house.
cruelty to animals.
Left.
He was alleged to have. It is what it is. He allegedly neglected to feed and water his dogs. Water like they're
Alleged.
give water to his dogs, allegedly. So, yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. We'll talk about it when we get to the defensive line group about his place amongst the rest of the defensive linemen on this roster as well. But outside of that, to this point, nothing crazy happened. So we're just sticking on the right track. We on the right track. We did have voluntary OTAs continue. And we got a little bit of a highlight from Mahomes to Hollywood Brown, which was very nice to see. I think we can all agree that it's always nice to see
Ross
the
is
deep
back.
ball
Shout
come back.
out Ross, baby.
Shout out to Ross coming back.
Ross
Remember our
is
Arrowhead
back.
AM PM. For those who don't know, over there on X, Ross gonna be having a space, tomorrow. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But yeah, so from OTAs today, we got this highlight from Mahomes to Hollywood Brown. Hopefully, a great preview of
Boom.
things to come. To say the least, I just traded for Hollywood Brown in my dynasty league to go with Mahomes, who already had. So, looking forward to that. Stat gave me a lot of
Whoever
points.
did that trade with you is a dummy.
Uh,
I'm not gonna give you his number one target until Rashid gets back, or number two target until Rashid gets back. That's so stupid.
He's gonna be the number one. Well, we'll talk about that. He's gonna be number one target to me the entirety of the season, but it's a different conversation we can have.
Whoever that guy is, he doesn't. Clay doesn't watch us, or no, never.
But yes, so that was a little bit of what we had going on at OTAs today, and discussion surrounding it of what the Chiefs are trying to do, bring the deep ball back into the offense. Certainly, we're all excited to see that happen again from that standpoint as well. Hollywood Revenge TD in Week 1, yes. Hollywood will be facing his old team in the Ravens. I don't know for the first time, but he will be facing them
Lock
in
it in,
Week
Chuck.
1.
Plus money.
Always plus money. I did that trade in Canadians. Hey, look,
You already know
look,
we locked
we all know that we think that he's going to have a really good year for us, to say the least. He's had really good years for other teams, and we certainly think that this is going to be the most advantageous position he's ever been in from that standpoint. And just my quick look. Oh no, the Cardinals did play Baltimore last year. He had 6 catches for 33 yards and a touchdown. So not necessarily the first time he will have an opportunity for a revenge game, but it will be the first time that he'll have an opportunity for a revenge game with a good quarterback.
Shots
the best
fired. Bow,
quarterback.
bow, 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 bow.
So we're gonna have a lot of fun with that certainly as well. But yeah, so that's a little bit of the OTA report. Nothing really to talk about outside of that. Did you guys see anything come across your timeline as far as that was concerned?
No, not really.
No news is good news, fellas.
Yes,
Seems
it
like
is. Yes, it
in the
is.
off season, Mahomes kind of worked on his accuracy as far as putting it on the outside shoulder with the deep ball. So looks like that's been a point of emphasis for him.
He said, "I'm back."
Yeah. So hopefully,
It's just
not
a
that he
repetition thing.
ever struggled as much, but did look a little more
You don't get to
crisp.
really connect on them for like what, a whole year or two. So now it's
Yeah,
like
right.
getting in the flow and the rhythm. We only took like maybe 3 or 4 deep shots you late in the game sometimes. So now
Yeah,
you can get back in the flow of having maybe 3 or 4 each half. So maybe we can get that number up to 7 or 8 for the whole game. So
right.
getting back in rhythm, continue to do those things, and obviously we want X to take care of his hamstring he's been dealing with during training mini camp. So hopefully we get him 100% ready to go for training camp and we hit St. Joe. I'm not worried about that at all, honestly. When he gets rolling, he knows what his job will be. We know he won't have like a huge load on him because Andy doesn't like to overload the rookie. So, but I think once we get back in the training camp, everybody be ready to rock and roll from the receiver standpoint, mainly because everybody knows what their job is. So I think they pretty much know what the designation is going to be on Rashid because I think if they knew it was going to be longer than what we thought, then they would have signed somebody. So them not signing a receiver kind of gives me peace. Like they probably know what's going on. So I think they kind of know who we're going to roll with. Our 3 is obviously ex Hollywood, and it's going to be Justin Watson until the time being. So I'm just ready to get to St. Joe, honestly, and just as long as nobody's doing anything stupid, no injuries and nothing, God is great.
I'm into that. So the other news that we got earlier today was the Pro Football Writers Association honored Steve Spagnuolo with their Lifetime Achievement Award for assistant coaches. Shout out to Steve Spagnuolo, a guy that multiple time champion as a defensive coordinator, certainly deserves his flowers
Best
for
in
what
the
he
league.
does. As a playoff coach specifically and making adjustments on the defensive side of the ball. I've made the statement in the past. I don't think that's ever been a coach that was strictly a defensive coordinator that has won on the level of Steve Spagnuolo. And he has probably the best argument as an assistant coach to go into the Hall of Fame. Since maybe I guess the old Steelers defensive coordinator, who unfortunately his name slipped my mind, but that's really the only one that comes to mind. All the offensive coordinators would go on to be offensive head coaches at a certain point in time. So I think that this is certainly well earned. Certainly happy to see Spags get that recognition. And this was really a masterclass for Spags, not just in the playoffs, but the entirety of the season, stepping up in the ways that we needed our defense to be elite. And he was obviously leading the charge and always leads the charge for what this defense is able to do on a consistent basis year in and year out. And we've seen the effects of that since 2019, where he took over for a defense that was bottom of the league, historically bad levels in 2018, turned them into a championship level squad that can complement an elite offense. And we saw the continual aspects of how he evolved that defense, bringing in young guys, making sure they're up to snuff, obviously leading to these back-to-back titles with a really young group. So shout out to Steve Spagnuolo, well earned, certainly for that award as well. And we're happy to talk about another Steve Spagnuolo-led defense coming up this season, certainly, as we go through our positional group review. Something that made CJ very happy to point out as well.
Yeah.
So I think we're just going to go ahead and start here, kind of with the big boys in the middle, man. The defensive tackle group, headlined obviously by the most important guy, Mr. Chris Jones, Sack Nation himself, signed back to this roster. Thank goodness. I think we all had a nice sigh of relief and a lot of happiness with that ended up coming down, a 5-year, $158 million deal with $101 million guaranteed. Well earned for Chris Jones, the CEO of Sack Nation, the centerpiece of this defense that has won 3 titles and become a dynasty. And so he is the headliner. Also, Derek Nottie brought back on a 1-year deal. Mike Pennell, who I would say had a massive playoffs for us, really stepped up as a space eater in the middle, stopping the run on a consistent basis, was brought back as well in a 1-year deal. Trishawn Warren, who I thought actually came on as the season went on, as he recovered from that ACL injury, to look back with or to look more like himself with a little bit of that a little bit of that pass rush juice from the inside. And then further down, we have Isaiah Buggs, who of course is now in legal trouble, not going to be great for his prospects to make the team, and Neil Farrell, who we did trade for from Vegas last year for a 6th-round pick. And the other 2 guys, Matt Dickerson, who was recently brought back, much to my chagrin, and Fabian Lovett, a very interesting UDFA out of FSU. I would say that Fabian Lovett probably has one of the better chances out of the UDFAs to actually make this squad. Somebody that we'll be certainly having our eyes on as we get into the training camp portion, where we can finally put some pads on and these boys go out there, start hitting, and certainly as we go into preseason games. So what kind of stands out to you as we talk about this defensive line group, DG? Go ahead and lead us off.
I think it's the depth, I guess you could say, at this point in time. You got a lot of guys that do a lot of different things. As you said, Mike Pennell and Derek 90 are kind of your guys that are, space eaters, run stuffers, guys that can kind of control the middle, control some double teams, keep Chris Jones clean, allow him to have some one on ones at points and times in the middle there. And then you got another guy like Tershawn Wharton who provides that pass rush aspect that you can kind of bring in on third downs, and kind of some of those NASCAR packages that they like to go to, and also help Chris Jones stay clean. I think all these guys have that role to where they know that playing next to 95 is a massive luxury at this point. Just because you just got to just come in and do your job, and he'll take care of the rest at this point. Also, uh, when healthy, having a guy like Omenahue who can come from the edge and kick into the inside as well helps a lot with the versatility of this defensive line, that interior of this defensive line as well at this point. So yeah, a lot of depth, a lot of versatility. Guys who are committed to doing what they know how to do at this point in time, and not trying to be superstars or anything like that. So definitely love what they have in the middle of that line. Um, Definitely excited to see some of these younger guys like Fabian Lovett and Neil Farrell. I kind of tend to think that Isaiah Bugs is probably not going to make the team at this point in time, just with all the trouble going on around him. So, big opportunity going into training camp for some of those younger guys to step up and show us what they really have. Would really love to see what Nero Farrell can provide for a full season. Now that he's got a full season of the playbook underneath his belt, and it's kind of acclimated more into this defense or whatever. So yeah, excited for the interior part of this group. I know a lot of people going into it would have liked to have seen us maybe get another guy in the draft, but I think the Chiefs kind of felt fine with what they have at this point in time right now. So yeah, excited, man.
Absolutely. CJ, how do you feel about this defensive line group?
Continuity and chemistry brought everyone back. I love that. So, Joe Cullen is big on having guys that he really doesn't have to teach too much, because honestly, everybody that came back outside of the move that we made as far as like bringing in guys in the middle of the season like Farrell and obviously bringing in Bugs at the end of the season. That was pretty cool to see those guys come in and try to bring us some veteran leadership. But overall, I love the continuity we brought back. Like DG said, Tershawn's back. George is always taking another step in his year. Charles Minnie, who's progressing really well in his offseason ACL surgery. Once we signed 9-5, that was the biggest domino of the whole offseason for me. Once we set that, I was pretty good with whatever else we did, and we doubled down and brought the other familiar faces back. Mike Dana, obviously Felix is going to take a big step in his sophomore year. So outside of them really like bringing in depth pieces and guys we did like UDFAs, and obviously I think Lovett, like D-Mac said, is going to be a guy he's a big body, a big boy who's tall. Obviously, we're known for having we're always tops in the league as far as swats and batted down passes. So him having his size and his length, I think we could use that as ability for sure and help us in that department. But I love the chemistry and everybody that we brought back. It's going to be like night and day as far as from our D-line group last year starting the season to this year. Everybody that we essentially had made big plays for us at the end of the year. Mike Dana made big plays and sacks. Obviously, we know Felix had a big pressure in the Super Bowl as well. Charles Minnie, who's going to be recovering. So essentially, this is just like last year when we missed him for 7 games. 9-5 is back there. I expect a big year for George. I'm thinking like, what did he finish with last year? Was it 12.5 or 13?
10
last year?
10 and a half.
So I think 12 or 13 is probably a good number for him this year. So I expect a big jump from him. Tershawn Wharton, he's now 3 years removed from his ACL or 2 years removed from an ACL. So he'll start the year faster. Obviously, Mike Pennell, we're used to getting him at the end of the year. Now we have to get him for a whole 17 games. So that's going to be interesting to see that dynamic with him. But overall, I love the chemistry and the familiarity. We brought all the guys back. So now it's just about staying healthy, getting Charles Minnie back. And he's been posting videos and vlogs saying he's progressing really well. So if he comes back and hits the ground running, I think this D-line group is going to be even more special than it was last year, especially when you guys got like 95 and obviously George pushing each other, trying to make each other better. So if you got 2 guys right there getting you 10-plus sacks, Mike Dana had a career year last year as well. I think he could probably push that number and try to get double digits as well. This could be a scary group for sure, especially because all the guys that make plays for us are here for the whole year instead of middle parts of the season. And obviously like October and November when we're adding guys to the roster. Now we get them for a whole training camp, whole offseason, a whole 17 games. This could honestly be one of our better D-line crews we've had in a long time.
No, yeah, absolutely. And look, the biggest thing for me is the ability to have different, kind of skill sets. It's just going to be fascinating how many of these guys you can end up keeping in general. And part of that will, as we get into the defensive ends, talking about Charles Menu coming back from injury, obviously from that standpoint, but Tershawn Warren being a little bit more of the pass rush juice, which that Derek Nottie brings to the table. Mike Pennell, obviously, you expect to kind of stay on this roster. Can a guy like Fabian Lovett kind of push their way ahead of Isaiah Buggs, ahead of Neil Farrell? Really separate himself to be that kind of run stopping option. Do you want to keep 5 interior players, on this roster when you look at the edges and the rest of the other number crunches that you're looking at, especially some depth in the secondary? So it's going to be fascinating to see where exactly that does end up landing. It's going to be a very interesting battle, especially in the back half. And you assume that Mike Pennell doesn't have to do much in training camp, that he's just kind of going to be penciled into a spot. But it'll be fascinating to see how much competition ends up happening from that aspect. Defensive ends, obviously headlined by George Karlaftis, had a great second year with the double-digit sack total. Mr. Mike Dana signed back here on a 3-year deal for reasonable money, well earned for on his kind of account, given the Charles Omeni of it all. Obviously, FAU you're expecting to step up. Makes sense to bring him back kind of as a steadying presence so that you guarantee yourself having 2 starting edges. You could bring Charles Omenihu back on a little bit of a slower timeline if necessary, and then see where FAU's development takes him. And I do still expect a huge leap from FAU in his second year. We saw that he was working with Tamba Ali, and BJ Thompson is somebody that I'm still on the lookout for, as well as because he does have the ability to get off the edge very quickly. So we'll see what he's learned from Cullen after his rookie year, and if he can try and factor into a defensive line rotation, that will obviously be missing Charles Omenihu to start out. To say the least, and Truman Jones, a guy that we had as a UDFA, is worth mentioning here as well. Anything stand out to you from the defensive end specifically, DG?
Yeah, the I guess the maturation process for George Karlaftis at this point. Each year taking kind of that leap. Going from I think he had 7.5 or something like that in this rookie year to double digit sacks. So hopefully keeping that production up at this point. You saw points in times last year where you seen that offseason work really come into effect for him, especially with some of the hand fighting, some of the different moves that he was putting out there on the field. So definitely would love to see more of what he has in the tank. You always knew the effort from him was always there. Just had to put some of the kind of the fundamental stuff together, which I kind of expect the same thing from FAU as well. Too, working with Tamba is obviously he's seen what it's done for Karlaftis at this point in time. So definitely ready to see the maturity and the growth in both of their games going up, and looking probably to see George maybe become more of a leader on that line, more of a voice in that locker room or whatever. At this point, this is just going into his 3rd year, so he's kind of, I feel like at this point he has to kind of step up and be more of a vocal leader at this point. So excited to see that. The edge grouper I love, man. Having a guy like Mike Dana back, who I ain't gonna lie to you, I kind of thought we would lose him in free agency. I thought he was signed for a lot more with another team, but definitely excited to come back, especially on the 3-year deal for reasonable money. It seemed like he values winning and being in a comfortable spot more than just going out there and getting the bag. So yeah, it's good to have guys like that, especially when you got a guy like Charles Omenihu who went down late in the season and kind of will be rehabbing until the middle part of the season and getting him back. So, but don't expect any, I guess, slide off from this defensive line, especially from the edge group. With Omenihu being out, expect those guys to still go out there and perform to the best of their abilities and put up some good sack numbers at this point. I think they can be very disruptive, especially early on in the season. So yeah, especially with 9-5 and they're working, he makes that whole line go. So as long as they can work off of him, yeah, they got a good shot at it being one of the better defensive lines in the league.
Absolutely. And when you talk about what you brought to the table as far as George Karlaftis last year is concerned, he was able to build upon what again was a very good opening start to his career. And it's shown here kind of in a tweet that I saw earlier by Math Bomb. Shout out to him. He does the relative athletic score. But talking about kind of second year guys that were under the age of 24 that had double digit sacks, all of them with the elite athletic profiles. George Karlaftis fits that bill. All first round picks, all of them coming in at year two. And look, that's a testament to the work that George put in the offseason to be even better. And it certainly was impressive from that standpoint. He improved his win percentage in 2023. He got up to 11.9%. 2022, he was somewhere, I think it was around 6%, if I remember correctly. So, across the board, really, he became a better player. And specifically, when you talk about working off of Chris Jones, he was much better from that standpoint as well. But important to mention, somebody that does kind of satisfy those qualifiers a little bit close as far as missing that elite RAS score just by off by a little bit, 8.7 to 9. But another year under his belt working with Cullen and Tamba. Hopefully, FAU is the guy that's next in line for that type of leap and certainly can be a difference maker on this defensive line. In my estimation, that is going to have to pick up the slack of trading L'Jarius Sneed. We do expect that there is talent in the secondary that could step up into their roles, but that defensive line has got to be disruptive to make it matter first and foremost, in my opinion. And it's possible because, I am optimistic about what FAU can bring to the table. I do think they're going to be passing down to which BJ Thompson can make an impact. I truly do believe that. So it'd be fascinating to see what ends up happening from that standpoint. So, moving forward, as far as the linebackers are concerned, of course, Willie Gay ended up signing in New Orleans for a 1 year, $5 million deal. Shout out to Willie Gay. I thought he was going to get a little bit more money, to be honest with you. Did not end up happening from that aspect, which was surprising. But now this linebacker crew is set out. Nick Bolton, of course, in the middle. Is a guy that is extension eligible, something to watch. Leo Chanel coming into his third year, coming off of back-to-back very good Super Bowls against the 49ers and Eagles, in which he stepped up his level of play. Drew Tranquil, that had his first year here in Kansas City, was very happy to get out of LA because he won a championship and excited to contribute to a dynasty roster from that standpoint. And then behind him, nothing but young guys. Cam Jones, a guy that flashed at times when we went through a lot of attrition, in my opinion. Jack Cochran, who's been here for a bit. They re-signed Cole Christensen after rescinding his tender, I believe, if I remember correctly. Then we got a trio of UDFA linebackers as well, headlined by Curtis Jacobs out of Penn State. Somebody that there's been a lot of talk about possibly, making his way onto this roster, at the very least onto the practice squad. So, CJ, what about this linebacker crew really stands out to you as far as worth pointing out moving into 2024?
You could tell that Veach kind of values a lot of chemistry, bringing most of the guys back. It does suck to see Willie leave, but a move that most of us expected, and we kind of projected that this time last year. That we knew this probably was going to be his last year. So he went out on a high note, went out a champion, multiple time champion with the Chiefs. So you can never be too mad about what Willie did in his time here. Definitely was a rocky thing, obviously from the beginning to end, but overall, definitely appreciate everything he did. But as far as the group we have now, obviously last year we thought that would be one of the better linebacking groups in the league. And that depth proved itself throughout the year when you lost Drew Tranquil for some games and Nick Bolton. And obviously Willie Gay, all three of those guys were in and out the lineup. But going into the season now, obviously I expect Leo to take a bigger jump. He's going to have a major role this year. I think he's probably having because Nick Bolton's pretty much proven himself. We know who he is. He's one of the better middle linebackers in the league. I think he will get paid. Out of all the guys who are eligible, I think he's number 2 after Creed. I think Creed should be the first one to get his money. But I think Nick Bolton's probably pretty much have already solidified as a guy who deserves an extension. Now, how much he'll get, we'll see when that time comes. But I think, it's going to be big. I think the biggest position that's probably the battle will probably be who's going to go for linebacker 3. It's probably going to be between those guys that D-Mac just mentioned, Cam Jones. Obviously, Darius Harris is still on his roster as well. I know he's been in and out, off practice squad, but outside of obviously, Drew's going to rotate in, Leo's going to play because him and Nick are always going to be those guys as far as they're going to be a top three in our rotation. So whoever gets to, fourth spot is going to be the one that we're probably going to be the most battle for. So I expect it to be between Jack Cochran, who played serious minutes for us last year when those guys went down. Obviously, Cam Jones is a guy who has a lot of athletic ability, like D-Mac said, and between those three, him and Jack Cochran, those three are going to be battling for that fourth spot. Who's ever going to try to get that? Because obviously, Darius Harris has been here the longest. He obviously knows the system, been here a long time. He's been here as far as our Super Bowl championship runs, been in and off practice squad. So you know how it is to fight for a spot. And obviously, Cam Jones has all the athleticism. But then Jack Cochran, I was the only guy out of those three. He's worn the green dot. So he's had the trust from Spags. If guys go down, he knows how to call the defense. So you're going to get an extra nod because of him. Because if Nick Bolton goes down, who will be the guy to put that on behind Drew Tranquil will be the next guy in line. So I think that those four are probably going to be the guys that are going to be fighting for that fourth spot, or those three guys fighting for that fourth spot for sure. That's going to be my most interesting battle to see in training camp. If I had to pick somebody, I would probably give it to Jack because I could just see the way he interacts with Spag. I think he just trusts him, obviously. And a guy that you trust can call the defense usually get a little more of a nod. But Darius can run and so can Cam. So they're both really athletic. So it's going to be interesting to see who tries to go for that spot and get that fourth linebacker spot.
Absolutely. DG, what about you, setting out as far as the linebacker crew is concerned?
Yeah, I think, losing Willie is obviously tough at this point in time, losing some of his athleticism and what he was able to kind of provide for you in a Spags related defense. Right. But, I think the Chiefs kind of going into this season kind of knew, the like I always talk about, man, the maturity and the maturation process of Leo Chanel kind of proved to them last year that, maybe life without Willie Gay could be, still pretty good. So I expect Leo Chanel to really take a big step this year and kind of take over that role that Willie kind of left behind to kind of, be that versatile guy that they need in the middle of that defense. I still think this can be one of the better linebacking crews in the league. I think last year was arguably the best linebacking crew in the league, next to some other teams like the Ravens and stuff like that. But yeah, man, when you got guys like Drew Tranquil and Nick Bolton, guys who provide so much for this defense and getting guys lined up correctly, and then having that pressure, being able to take off from Drew Tranquil, who can go out there and pass coverage and take care of some things that Nick may not be able to do at points in times is really great. So a lot of versatility in that locker room. Excited to see what some of the guys underneath like Jack Cochran and believe Darius Harris, Cam Jones, see what those guys can bring to the table. But I really expect a lot from Tranquil, Bolton, and Chanel to kind of lead the charge for that grouping. And then, with the safety group being what it is right now too, kind of can squeeze in Justin Reed to be in the box a little bit more as well too, and play that role as a a hybrid linebacker as well too. So, the versatility for this team, and that's something that Brave Beach has always been adamant about. It's just the versatility of this team provides you so much to move guys around. It's incredible what they can be able to do, and I think Spags loves that the most at this point. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
excited.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And before we get into the safeties as a conversation, largely, centered around that hybrid role from that aspect. I mean, Nick Bolton, like I mentioned, is a guy that is up for an extension. Would he be a guy that you guys would extend? Some people argue, obviously, that he does not have elite linebacker play, and from that standpoint, you should not pay him. Other would obviously give credence to what Steve Spagnuolo has laid out and his importance to the middle of this defense from that aspect. I'm somebody, obviously, that's a Nick Bolton supporter and does think that he is an important piece. But how do you guys feel about that?
I would tell a lot of those people, you put on the green dot, you go out there and call plays.
That green dot ain't easy to
let
wear,
me know. Let me know how that works out for you.
It's hard to find a good linebacker who can call the defense. That's not easy to find. You have a guy who can do everything. He's played with a broken thumb, with the cast, without a cast. Not too much drop off outside the drop picks, which I'll give him some slack because he has a cast on, but not really many holes in Nick Bolton's game outside of the athleticism, which he really didn't get exposed too much this year as much as he did in his first couple of years in the league. He's improved at that point. And that's all about being in position. Like you said, knowing the offense, knowing the scheme, knowing the formation. If you get out the huddle faster, you can dissect what the offense is doing to put yourself in a better position to make plays so you don't get beat, obviously, in one-on-one situations. So Nick Bolton's gotten better every single year. Ever since from his rookie year to now, he's showed and proven to everyone, especially I don't know why the fans are even doubting him, that he's easily one of the better middle linebackers in the league. Because outside of this true speed that he doesn't possess, there's really no weaknesses to a game. He doesn't miss tackles. He's one of the more sure handle tackle guys that we have in the NFL, let alone our own team. He can call a defense, bad weather, good weather. He makes plays, and he's always in the right position. He rarely gets put out of place to where he gives up big plays. So, and obviously the rotation we've had as far as our defensive line and linebackers we had last year, whenever Nick Bolton was in the game, you felt the defense shift and how much better we played when he was on the field. And I think that's undeniable. And I don't think too many stats or numbers can show you that. You just watch the game and just feel everybody gets set in place. People get lined up faster. Everybody's just better when Nick Bolton's on the field. So, obviously, of all the guys that are eligible for contracts, I think Creed Humphrey should be the first one to get paid. I think that's first and foremost. I think it's pretty obvious. I think most people would agree. But after him, Nick Bolton will be my number 2 for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think Nick Bolton deserves a payday. Yeah, he may lack some things in pass coverage abilities that some people don't like. But when you got a guy like I said that can wear the green dot, can play downhill, is a sure tackler, and I really believe since he's been here, our run defense has been tremendously a lot better. Just with his ability to decipher, getting in and out of certain holes and stuff like that, or whatever. There's a lot of guys in this league that can't do that or whatever. So there's certain things that you have to value in his game that I think is worthy of paying him a contract extension at this point in time or whatever. Is he, these guys at the top like a Roquan Smith or a Fred Warner or whatever? No. But at the end of the day, you got a guy out there that's going to go out there and do his job, take care of what he can take care of, and as well be a vocal leader as we've seen and lead this defense to where they need to be. I really feel like he's the quarterback of that defense, and I don't think you can replace that or find that in somewhere else. So definitely deserves a payday.
Yeah, so now I just wanted to put it on the screen for what you were talking about, an inside linebacker. Contracts obviously headlined by Fred Warner and Roquan Smith, the elite of the elite, all pros at the position. Up there, $19-20 million. Jermaine Edmonds making $18 million. That's a little bit more. I'm not trying to buy no toilet paper, dog. Come on.
Why are you trying to buy no toilet paper, bro?
Shop now. Last twice as long.
Last twice as long, bro.
Y'all don't sponsor us, okay? If y'all sponsor us,
hey Scott, if you want to sponsor us, we're available, baby. We take all offers.
Hit us up, Scott.
Hit me. I'll take it. I'll take the toilet paper.
Oh man!
Definitely need
Virgin Hotels. If y'all want to sponsor us,
y'all want to sponsor us,
y'all too,
our DMs
bro.
are open. Kingdom Cash with 2Ks. You know what I'm saying? Right.
Tremaine Edmonds also making $18 million. A little bit of overpay, but again, where the Bears were at, then you understand why they end up giving him that extra money. In my opinion, I would be perfectly fine paying him a little bit more than Patrick Green, somewhere in that $14 to $15 million range. I think that's something that he could settle in on. Ideally, that would be for the best. And I think that keeps a certain piece of your defense in place for years to come. And again, you talk about his game. He doesn't have many holes. The holes that you're really talking about are the things that the elite of the elite do. Yes, there are a little bit of question marks about his block shedding. Absolutely, we'll have to give credence to that. Yes, there are question marks about how much range he has in pass coverage. But we know that Steve Spagnuolo, the way that he calls his defense, allows for Nick Bolton to play to his strengths. And not necessarily be asked to do too much of his weakness. And now that we have Drew Tranquill back here on a 3-year deal to really complement what that brings to the table, those two are a really nice 1-2 punch. And also Leo playing a little bit of that Sam and being willing to also play a little bit of edge as well, which we saw him do pretty effectively down the stretch. And you're ultimately just hoping for a lot of better, I should say, health out of this position, because this position went through a lot of attrition last year, whether it was Nick Bolton, whether it was Drew Tranquill. Willie Gay, Leo Chanel. There were times in which they were really getting into that depth because of those injuries. And so along those lines, as we talk about the versatility of Steve Spagnuolo's defense and how he likes to move guys around and maybe play guys quote unquote out of position, on to the safeties. And this is what I would say a very impressive group. And so PFF did their top, I think it was 25 safeties in the league. And nobody from the Chiefs had appeared on the list, but I still think that this is one of the stronger safety rooms in the league because you're talking about going too deep at each of those positions and a really good special teams contributor in Dion Bush. But you're talking about two strong safeties, Justin Reed and I do believe the rookie Jaden Hicks, that can go and give you sub linebacker packages and give you snaps from that position. Those guys can also play some split safety. Those guys can play robber. They're physical. They are not afraid to hit. They will make their presence felt from that standpoint. And then as far as the free safeties are concerned, Brian Cook, and I will mention obviously Najee Johnson and Shamari Connor here. Shamari Connor listed as a starting nickelback, and this is a very interesting standpoint of how Spags chooses to deploy them. There's an argument that Trent McDuffie being used a little bit more in the number one cornerback role, as we saw him talk about during the press conference now that L'Jarius Sneed is traded, that Shamari Connor being in the slot more will be a little bit more in that nickelback role from that aspect, at least from a quote unquote base nickel, a little bit of big nickel, which obviously Steve Spagnuolo loves to play with three safeties on the field. And Brian Cook coming back from that ankle injury, who we saw out there working at OTAs, seemed like he was moving around fine. Certainly good to see him back out there. And hopefully we will get the full complement of the safety room and their versatility, whether it is Reed or Hicks moving into robber and, at times sub linebacker packages. Connor obviously working out of the slot. Najee Johnson, we'll see how he factors in. But what exactly intrigues you the most out of this list? And specifically from a positional versatility standpoint, which of these players really intrigues you as well, DG?
I think the main player I'm excited to see this year is Shamari Connor and his growth. Obviously, receiving high praise from Steve Spagnuolo, basically saying that he's really taking a leap this year. But I think they got a lot of good things planned for him at this point in time. Could possibly see him come down and play some of that nickel corner at this point, especially with his versatility. I think I kind of tend to think maybe outside of the linebacking crew that this may be the best safety group. You know, as far as the Steve Spagnuolo's defenses have gone at this point in his tenure in KC. Um, you got so many guys that can just do so many different things. I know a lot of people's not favorite, but Justin Reed. Being able to be the leader in that locker room, the vocal leader in that locker room. But having guys that can just do different things at that point in time. Brian Cook coming back off the injury, who I feel like was having a phenomenal year going into the injury last year. Really has transformed, the attitude of our defense, as well as bringing in Jaden Hicks, seeing what he can be able to provide for us. But yeah, I really expect Shamari Connor to take a leap this year. I don't want to speak too soon, but there was points in times where you seen stuff kind of pop up on film that maybe this guy can be somebody that turns into an all pro player or has that potential to be a guy that can turn into a Pro Bowl type safety or whatever. So Veach might have found another gem in the fourth round. A lot of people didn't expect to be where he is now. So yeah, excited for the safety group. I just love the versatility that they have in this room or whatever. I don't think they have really a weakness in that group as well. A guy or any kind of fall off. If somebody goes down, I feel like there's a guy that there that can step in and do similar things to what that guy is missing at this point. So yeah.
CJ, what about you? As far as the safety room is concerned, what piques your interest?
Hot take: this will be the best safety group in football in the next. I'm gonna be nice to say 2 years, really 1 year, in my opinion. But like DG said, depth. I think all three of the guys, really four, I'll give Justin Reed his respect. I don't think Justin Reed will be here long term. Not to say he's not good. He's earned a right to obviously be a starting where he's one of our veterans in the group, like DG said. But the younger guys in this group, the main ones I'm focusing on, obviously, are Cook, Hicks, Chamari. I think those guys in the future will be one of the best rotations in football. And my biggest thing that I've always preached, and we've kind of said this during our whole draft specials, is versatility. I think all three of those guys could play any spot if need be, if given the opportunity. Obviously, like D-Max said, they have Chamari listed at nickelback. That lets you know how Spags feels about him. He had his first interception in the Bills game, I believe, and he kind of made that play being in the middle of the field when he was kind of playing middle robber and made a play on the ball that Josh Allen gave him. That we appreciate those, Joshy. But also, like, just I love the fact that Hicks and Cook can kind of do everything you ask them to do on the field, whether it be play in the box, play deep third if need be. Both guys are great tacklers, make plays in the open field, make plays on the ball if the ball's around them. I love those three guys and Chamari all in any spot in the field, honestly. And I know Spags does too. That's why there may be some weeks, like D-Mac said, where Chamari may be playing nickelback. There may be some weeks where he plays strong, and then we may have Trent in the slot that week. That's just how the versatility of this defense works. And I love how we have different options based on who we're playing. So if we were doing a scenario based on week one of this group, I could see obviously they don't have like the best slot receivers in Baltimore outside of Zay Flowers. That's really the only guy I could see making big plays for them. He's like the only guy. So if it was me, I would probably comfortable putting Trent in the slot if that's how they feel about it, because nobody outside is really going to really beat you over the top, honestly. So I could see Jalen Watson and Josh playing outside, and that'd probably be a big Trent McDuffie week playing against Zay Flowers, obviously because we've seen him recently at the end of the season. And then there may be other weeks where we're playing teams with bigger tight ends, like say we played like a Buffalo per se. I could see that being a Shamari Connor type week. A lot of Dalton Kincaid, a lot of bigger guys in the middle of the field. So that'd be a better matchup for him. So that's the thing that excites me most about this safety group is just the versatility. All three of those guys, I think, can just play anywhere on the field if Spags give them the opportunity. And I know Coach Mayer is going to coach them up well as also to get those guys prepared because, injuries happen. We hate to see it, but you have to be ready for each position. So I think each of those guys are going to be – I think Jaden Hicks may be not obviously like there's a lot of guys up for defensive rookie of the year. He has a lot of guys in front of him. But he could be a low-key sleeper if given the opportunity to go out there and start and not hoping for any injury at all. But if something did happen, I think he could step in flawlessly and go and just play right away. Obviously, we all watched the tape when he was at Washington State, and a kid that definitely played all over the field in the box, deep third. He made plays on the ball when it's around him. So that's probably the most exciting group, I'll say, like DG said. Of all the groups on defense, last year for me it was linebackers. This year is definitely the safeties for sure. I love and they're all young. So you look at their ages that D-Mac hasn't pulled on. Jaden's 24, got Cook 22, Shamari 23. So all those guys are under the age of 25. So I think in the next 2 years, we'll be talking about this being the best safety group in the NFL for sure.
A lot of young talent certainly out there. A lot of versatility, as I mentioned earlier, to say the least. I mean, I'm really excited for the kid Jaden Hicks. He's coming out of Wazoo, has a lot of experience in college. Still very young. I think that he was a sleeper in the draft for us to get him in the fourth round. I think he's somebody that can come in, and a lot of the consideration was, maybe he's not the easiest fit, but for the evaluators that really believed in him, I believe Dane Brugler had him as a second safety in the entire NFL draft last year. He has a role to play, and we know Spags is going to put him in the good position to play it. I mean, I really do look forward to seeing what he brings to the table. It's going to be a lot of fierce competition for snaps out there, but I like the fact that we got a lot of young, hungry guys in the secondary. Extending, of course, to the cornerback room. Going under a little bit of flux as L'Jarius Sneed did get traded to the Tennessee Titans for a 2025 third-round pick. It will be, It will be fascinating to see who exactly ends up winning that cornerback spot next to Trent McDuffie. If you assume that Jamar Conner is going to go into nickel a little bit more consistently, who's going to be that starting guy outside of him? Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams will be obviously the first people up to possibly go after it. It'll be interesting to see if a guy like Nick Jones or Najee Johnson can factor into that competition heavily. They believe in Nick Jones in the slot. Najee Johnson was somebody that made a lot of noise during training camp last year, certainly going into it. Kamal Hayden out of Tennessee, sixth-round draft pick, was brought in, a lot of length, solid athleticism, somebody that really did not do well during the draft process, obviously coming off of an injury. It'll be fascinating to see what he brings to the table during training camp as well. And Igor Boyado, somebody that had a little bit of an impact during training camp and the preseason games last year and was able to stick around on the roster coming into this year's OTAs and as we begin training camp in St. Joe. So anything really pique your interest, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the competition for that second cornerback spot as well. As you guys know, DG and CJ, anything specifically for the cornerbacks you want to highlight?
Yeah, I think so going into training camp, I think outside of the left tackle position, this is gonna be the group I think that a lot of people might have their eye on. Everybody's kind of gonna be watching to see who's gonna be that guy that replaces L'Jarius Sneed, obviously, who left I would say avoid, and a guy who's arguably last year an All Pro, in my opinion, an All Pro corner in this league. Definitely put up one of the better years in the league as far as cornerback goes. But trying to see um, can Trent McDuffie really take that leap to being the guy now, as well as Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson, who, in my opinion, I still think are serviceable guys. Maybe doesn't like the same kind of physicality that Jerry Sneed will bring to this team, but I think could still step in and be serviceable guys at that number 2 spot. So watching them battle it out. Maybe a guy like Kamal Hayden or a guy like Nazi Johnson steps up and really surprises a lot of people. Coming out of camp and takes that position from them. But yeah, definitely, I think a lot of eyes will be on this group. Because there are some question marks and uh, they are acceptable to have those question marks at this point in time, especially when you lose a guy like Steve. So, yeah, man, ready to see what the battle is gonna be like in this group for sure.
Absolutely, CJ. What about you?
I think Najee Johnson is going to be the kid that's definitely going to be the one to keep everybody eye on. Obviously, to see how he's transitioning from his knee injury, and he's been pretty open about it. And I know his mom has been very well vocal in the community about how he feels about Kansas City. So I know Najee's chomping at the bit to get back out on the field and prove himself and show everybody why he had the hype around him he was getting in training camp last year. Because if there is anyone that can play that nickel spot, obviously we said Shamari Connor's in that position as well. And obviously Trent's our number one if we have a big-time matchup that week. But I think Najee Johnson is another kid, if given the opportunity. If he's healthy, he can be another guy we could put in the slot as well. And I know we all saw the clips of him last year playing well against Trav in training camp, but I think he's only going to get better. And hopefully when we see him in pads, the knee injury doesn't hold him back too much from progression. The Chiefs tend to hold players back and not let them try to overextend themselves. So he's going to be the one I'm definitely keeping my eye on the most to see how he transitions into his, obviously, like second year being in the system, but more so his first year off the injury. Because usually it's your second year off a major knee injury is when you truly get to show yourself. So I'm excited to see how Najee does this year. But yeah, I think anybody that's going to be the biggest matchup, the biggest eye-opening one to see who wins is obviously, like DG said, it's going to be Josh versus Jalen. Guys have been veterans or younger veterans on this team for the last 2 years. They've made big plays for us in the playoffs, in the regular season. So I think those two guys kind of playing off of each other, making each other better is going to be interesting to see. I think Spags pretty much knows both guys' strengths and weaknesses. So I think there are going to be weeks where we may see Trent or obviously play outside or more so in the slot than Josh and Jalen. I think it'll kind of be like a matchup-based thing. So, like, I'm excited to see, like, what this DB group is going to do. But honestly, fellas, like, you know how I feel about DBs. Everybody's going to play. So, obviously, everybody wants to be the guy. Everybody wants to get more snaps than the next guy. But there's going to be matchups where, like, all right, Josh, you may be better suited this week than Jalen is and vice versa. Or this may be a week we may give Shamari Connor a chance in the slot of whoever the team we're going against, or maybe a Trent McDuffie week. So all 6 of these guys who are basically all in the top rotation for the corners, all y'all have to be ready. Because we've seen that in the last 2-3 years when Snead goes down, if Trent went down for the first half of his rookie season, everybody has to be ready to play because you never know when your number's going to be called. So especially at DB, it's never really a moment of like how much you're going to play. It's a matter of when, because you're going to play at some point because guys get concussions, hamstrings get pulled, things just happen that you can't control. It's football. So obviously everybody wants to have a starting job, but in my opinion, I just want guys to be ready. Because even if you're not in the starting top 2 as far as the depth chart going into week 1 for Baltimore, you may be starting week 2. You just don't know. So I just want to see guys battle every day, like DG said, see guys make each other better. And as long as everybody's just hungry, which I know Coach Spag is going to have everybody locked in. And he's going to keep everybody focused more so than anything because he teaches very well that, hey, your number is going to be called eventually. It just is what it is. It's hard to think 4 guys are going to play the whole season. It's just not realistic. So as long as everybody's hungry and locked in, when your moment's ready, like Deion Bush making the game-sealing interception, we didn't think he was going to play that much that week, but he did. So you just never know when your number is going to be called. So and if an undrafted guy like him can be ready at any moment. There's no excuses for any of these other young guys in the group. So I just want to see everybody battle every day, stay healthy, make each other better, and just be ready because you're all going to play eventually at some point for sure.
Absolutely. Don't disagree one bit. You never know when your number is going to end up being called, and the depth of this cornerback room is certainly going to be put to the test. And Dave Merritt will have these guys ready to step up to said challenge. And I'm certainly going to be looking forward to what that looks like from that aspect as well. And you never know, this could be a position in which they decide to bring a veteran in between now and training camp. Certainly to be on the lookout for it. Well.
Stephon Gilmore.
Marshawn Lattimore. Maybe trade.
He'd be a trade, yeah. It depends. Gilly a free agent.
Gilly is still a free agent. That is correct.
Gilly, you sitting at the crib, my boy Gilly, my boy.
I would say similar to what I kind of spoke about as far as Michael Thomas and being the part of a wide receiver addition. A cornerback like Gilly would make a lot of sense to add to this roster, specifically from an outside perspective, a guy that can start opposite of Trent McDuffie and then give you a little bit more versatility to move Trent McDuffie inside, follow around number one wide receivers as he may choose. So if Stephon Gilmore is the guy they want to bring in, I would not be opposed to it one bit. They still have a good bit of cap space out there to be spent. Obviously, some of that may be earmarked for extensions for Nick Bolton and Creed Humphrey, as we mentioned earlier. But putting a little bit on Stephon Gilmore to bring him in, or Michael Thomas, would not be the worst thing in the world, in my personal opinion. So it'll be interesting to see if there are any moves to certainly bolster this roster from that aspect as well as we move forward into the summer. The last thing is the kickers and punters, which the only reason why I put this on here is because we got a good bit of interesting news from Dave Tobe as he went to his press conference, mentioned that due to the new kickoff rules, they were trying out Mr. Justin Reed, everybody's favorite safety, at the kicker position. Obviously, he filled in for Harrison Bucker at times at the beginning of the season, of the beginning of the 22 season. Did I just forget? Yeah, the beginning of the 2022 season when Harrison Bucker got hurt, and he kicked the extra point and had some kickoffs. So he does have experience kicking. And so now they're experimenting with possibly using him on kickoffs with the new rules and how the last line of defense will theoretically be the kicker, and that may factor in a little bit differently. And so it'll be fascinating to see as far as kickoffs are concerned, how they possibly handle that. Directional kicking and accuracy is going to matter a lot given the new rules, but also will tackling as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they factor that in. And it must be said, there is a punter competition that will be happening throughout the summer as well, with Matt Ariza signed as not a undrafted free agent, but a free agent this offseason. Went through legal troubles, was exonerated, and now available to NFL teams, and ended up being the Chiefs that signed him. And Ryan Renko, somebody who I thought actually was the best punter in the draft, and actually showed out pretty well at the Senior Bowl and was incredibly hard to catch as far as the punts were concerned from everything that we heard as well. So it'll be fascinating to see how that competition ends up going out. Hopefully we won't be seeing a lot of them when it comes around, obviously, to the actual, games counting, because we're going to keep on getting those first rounds and touchdowns, of course. It'd be fascinating. And also something that does need to be mentioned, there is a holder competition as well with Tommy Townsend moving on to the Texans. Shout out to Tommy Townsend. Somebody has to do the holding, and that's going to be a huge part of Matt and Ryan competing for that punter job as well. So some interesting things all around, especially from special teams. And look, what we talked about as far as the defense is concerned, guys like Curtis Jacobs, guys like Cole Christensen, Cam Jones, Jack Cochran, a little bit down the roster, obviously Deion Bush, Nick Jones, Iko Boyado, Jaden Hicks. Those guys are going to be the guys that are factoring in as far as the special teams is concerned, especially with the new kickoff rules. You have to be able to make those plays, and that may be favoring a little bit more linebackers as well. So those are all those things that are going to be the little things that are going to be adding up to the special teams value that Dave Tobe will be taking into consideration that will ultimately have some input as far as roster building is concerned as well. Anything as far as special teams that you guys want to mention before we go ahead and wrap this on up?
Can't sleep on it, man. It's a big part of the game.
You never know. Obviously, with the new rules, like D-Mac said, I expect multiple guys to be back there for returns, just because it's such a new situation we have. It's basically going to be like, instead of like the normal kickoff is from like the 40. So now instead of like 50 yards of football, you just condense it down to like 30 yards. Because now you have like, because the starting point, everybody's at 35, right? Like they're going to be in place. Or is it 45? 35. So basically, it's like a 30-yard set of football because once obviously the returner catches the ball, then you can move. So the field just got condensed. So obviously a lot more guys are going to be back there. So I expect obviously Toad to be experimental back there and try to get multiple guys the ball. So he said he's going to give everybody a chance to go out there and make a play. I think he kind of has a vision of who's going to go out there and be making plays. I expect Luis to get a chance to make some plays. Obviously X will have his chances of giving the opportunity as well just because of his explosiveness. But I mean, day one, if we're going to pick a guy to go back there, I think you're probably going to be Justin Watson. He's most dependable, most reliable. Whenever we put him back there, he catches the ball, which is the most important thing. Because we know we're not really a big team that needs returns. We're just get 15 the ball and get him the ball and play and let's go win. But if you are going to put somebody back there, you want to see him make a play. I think those will be the three guys I expect to traditionally see what they're going to do. But shortening the field, it's really like 20 yards of football that you're playing with. So you have to make a play in between those lines. So once a guy catches the ball, you want to put some, and there may be some more trick plays back there, like some reverses, anything you could do to try to get on the edge and try to make plays outside the numbers. Because all it takes is one guy to get out of position when you're in a shorter condensed motion rather than when you're running down and trying to get around defenders. Now it's about just sealing and opening up lanes. So I'm excited to see what Tobe does. And I know training camp, usually fellas, the special team portion is actually boring and nobody watches. I'm going to be paying very detailed to them this year to see what Tobe is experimenting. And obviously he's not going to show too much because you don't want to give out your sauce to the open practices. So the practices when they go indoors will be the ones where he'll show his real stuff. He won't show too much to the public because you don't want us to see it. But I'll be excited to see what he's doing out there, to see how they're transitioning in this new phase. This is probably the biggest decision in special teams probably since when they changed the kickoff rule from like obviously when the first team the field goal doesn't automatically win the game. This is probably the biggest change we've had since then, honestly. So this is a major change for sure. This is going to change football a lot. Probably make return honestly more exciting for sure, especially if you have a good returner.
Yeah, better be ready to tackle. Better have your short tacklers out there.
Better.
So your athletic guys, I wouldn't mind them. Like I said, they felt like Justin Reed could really come in and do this this spot for you. I think it'd be really beneficial. And that was something that a lot of other teams might look at. Trying to get some of these defensive guys to be a little bit more versatile, but we be able to kick the ball, things of that nature, especially going into this season. So I'm with CJ. I think this is something that training camp that a lot of people will have their eyes on just to kind of see what Tobe has planned for this. Definitely a short, condensed part of the field. So you better be ready to tackle this year.
Really quick, like you catch the ball.
You catch the ball and you miss. There's only one person back there, so
Imagine if this would have been in play when we had Tyreek here. Oh my goodness!
Right,
the amount of touchdowns we could have scored.
Oh man,
that'd be crazy. Or even Miko, that would have been crazy. Either one of those guys. And this short, all you gotta do is literally like in a theoretical sense, like those 3 or 4 guys that are on the edges. If you get one person to seal, and maybe it's like a kick out, and you're trying to make a lane, or if you're trying to like squeeze everybody down and get on the edge, all it takes is one missed block or one unblocked guy to ruin this play. So if you can get one guy out of position, you can just pop it through. Once you get past the 40, it's crib. And if you have a kicker out there who's not athletic, they barely make tackles on regular kickoffs. What are you going to do with a guy who's running full speed at you and you only got 30 yards to get ready? So this can be a game changer for a lot of teams with good returners for sure. I expect Tobe to be ready regardless.
Yeah, look, and this is where good teams can find edges on the margins. You talk about obviously what Dave Tobe is doing. Dave Tobe is a very good special teams coach, and you talk about what he's doing, specifically having Justin Reed experiment. A lot of these kickers are going to be trying to make sure that they kick the ball into the zone first and foremost. They're not going to be worried necessarily about the extra line of defense. Teams are going to go out there and see if they can have other people try and kick off from that aspect. But if Justin Reed provides an advantage from that standpoint, better to do it than not have that guy out there. And if it just makes more sense, then do it. You don't necessarily need the distance in this case. You just need the accuracy and to put it where it needs to be on a consistent basis and keep it out of the out of bounds, really, or end zone on a fly from that standpoint. And then you talk about it from the flip side, Brett Veach bringing in a guy like Luis Rees-Zammit, who we talked about last week as far as the offensive breakdown is concerned. Somebody that's going to be tried out because of his rugby background with possible kick returns. Dave Tobe did mention that he was getting opportunities from that standpoint. Could he give you a little bit of a unique aspect to being able to do that as well? Should he make this roster? Could be fascinating. Again, really good teams found a way to win on the margins, and certainly special teams is a chief example among that. You saw end of the season, AFC divisional round, team had a chance to tie the ball game, went right. Sometimes that's the difference between losers and winners. That's the reality of the situation. So look, that was a really good look at the special teams breakdown and, of course, the entirety of the defensive groups. Next week, we are going to be getting into the schedule, specifically going down the opponents list that the Chiefs will be playing in 2024, 2025, starting with the AFC teams, getting a good look at the AFC North that we will be playing, and then as well as the division winners from last year. Certainly looking forward to that breakdown from that aspect. Anything before we go ahead and get on out of here, DG or CJ?
Nah, man. Appreciate always y'all support, man. Like we said, we're finalists for best podcast in KC for the People's Choice Award. So appreciate y'all for voting and pushing us to being
Y'all
a
really like us,
finalist.
man.
Right. Hopefully we win this award, man. It's a really big step, really big goal for us to, win this award and have a name out here in these KC streets. So
We
yeah, man,
outside,
excited.
man.
Right.
We outside, absolutely.
Outside.
Shout out to everybody that did it up voting for us, that voted against it on May 31st. But shout out to everybody that did vote for Kingdom Cast for that award. Certainly would hope to be the finalists that end up winning. And we look forward to that coming up in July as well. So with all that being said, I don't think there's anything else, man. For DG, for CJ, I'm D-Mac, man. Tell the truth. Peace out.